When my mother slammed the brakes, something inside my chest shifted. Not just pain, something moved, like a cracked piece of bone scraping another. The air punched out of me and I made a sound I didn't mean to. A thin, broken noise. "Stop," Mom snapped without looking at me. "Don't make it worse." I tried to breathe. In, it burned. Out, it burned more. "If anyone asks," she said, gripping the steering wheel, "you tripped. You fell over the laundry basket. That's all you say." I nodded because talking felt impossible. The hospital doors slid open and cold light flooded in. Too bright, too clean, like everything that had happened was about to be exposed just by walking inside. Mom went straight to the desk. "My daughter fell." I followed slowly, my ribs screaming with every step. It felt like my chest was barely holding itself together. They put me in a small room behind a thin blue curtain. The bed crinkled when I moved. Even that tiny sound felt too loud. I tried to breathe shallow. In, stop, out, stop. If I went any deeper, something inside me felt like it would tear. A nurse came in, soft voice, gray hair, kind eyes. "I'm Rita," she said. "What happened to you?" Mom answered before I could. "She slipped on the stairs." Rita didn't write that down right away. She looked at me instead. "Did you fall?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. "I just need to check your ribs," Rita said gently. Mom stiffened. "Is that necessary?" Rita didn't reply. She lifted my shirt. The air touched my skin and I flinched. Purple, blue, yellow, old and new layered together. One bruise wasn't round or random. It curved in a shape I recognized even if I didn't want to. Rita went very still. "That mark," she whispered. "From the banister," Mom said fast. Rita pressed lightly against my side. I screamed. "X-ray," she said, no longer gentle. "Now." The machine was cold and enormous. They told me not to move, but my body wouldn't stop shaking. The metal hummed around me like it was pulling something out of me without touching me. Back in the room, Mom wouldn't look at me. Her phone kept buzzing in her hand. I knew who it was. "Where are you? Why aren't you home?" The doctor came in slowly, holding the images like they weighed something. "You have 2 broken ribs from tonight," she said. Mom inhaled sharply. "Not cracked," the doctor added. "Broken." A pause. "And there are more." My ears rang. "These lighter lines," she said quietly, pointing. "They're healed fractures. Different times." Another pause. "6 of them." Mom shook her head. "No, she falls. These aren't falls," the doctor said. I stared at the glowing image. All those white lines were things I remembered. Nights I couldn't lie down. Days I couldn't breathe right. Times I was told I was being dramatic. I didn't feel relief. I felt naked. Like something that had been hidden inside me was now on a wall for strangers to see. Mom's phone buzzed again. I glanced down. One word filled the screen. Mark. He was already on his way to the hospital, and he had no idea what the X-ray had just told them. Mom didn't answer the phone. It kept buzzing in her hand, short, angry bursts of light filling the room. I didn't need to see the name. I could already feel him getting closer, like a storm you hear before you see. "Pick up," she whispered. "Just pick up." The door opened instead. Heavy footsteps. Slow, confident, the air in the room changed. It didn't feel safe anymore, it felt watched. "Where is she?" Mark called, his voice warm and worried. The voice he used around other people. "My stepdaughter was in an accident." Mom jumped to her feet. "Mark!" 2 police officers stepped between them. "Sir, wait here," he smiled. Easy, polite. The kind of smile that made strangers relax. "I'm her guardian," he said. "She's scared. I'll take her home." My body curled in on itself. My ribs burned just from the way I tensed. The doctor came out holding the glowing X-ray images. "Mr. Anderson," she said calmly, "we need to talk." His eyes flicked to the screen. Something passed through them quick and dark before the smile returned. "What is that?" he asked. "These," the doctor said, pointing, "are multiple fractures, different stages of healing." "So," he scoffed, "kids get hurt." "Not like this," she replied. "These are repeated injuries." He laughed once, short, sharp. "She's clumsy. These marks are not from falling." One of the officers stepped closer. "Sir, we're going to need you to answer a few questions." Mark looked irritated now. "About what? A dramatic teenager?" My throat tightened. "I didn't fall." The room went still. Mark turned slowly toward me. "What did you say?" he asked softly. "I didn't fall," I said again. My voice shook, but it didn't stop. "You did this," Mom gasped. "Don't, I remember," I said. "Every time I couldn't breathe, every time I was told to stay quiet." Mark stepped forward, but the officers blocked him. "She lies," he said quickly. "She wants attention." The doctor lifted the x-rays higher. "Bones don't get confused," she said. One of the officers spoke into his radio. "We have probable cause." Mark turned to Mom. "Tell them," he demanded. "Tell them she's crazy." Mom stared at the glowing image, at the lines. At the truth, her face folded. I didn't know it was this bad." Mark's eyes hardened. "You knew enough," he said. The officer took his arm. "Sir, you are being detained." "For what?" Mark snapped. "This is ridiculous. For assault of a minor." They cuffed him. As they pulled him toward the door, he looked straight at me, not angry, not loud. "Cold. You ruined everything," he mouthed. As the door slammed, the doctor leaned close to me. "These injuries," she whispered, "don't all come from tonight." And suddenly I knew this had been happening for a very long time. The room felt different after they took him away. Not quieter, heavier, like something poisonous had been pulled out, but the air still remembered it. My ribs throbbed under the tight wrap the nurse had just tied around my chest. Every breath had to be small, careful. Like if I went too deep, something inside me would split open. The doctor pulled a chair close to my bed. "I need to ask you some questions," she said gently. "And I need you to be honest, even when it hurts." I stared at the ceiling. Hurting was breathing. She turned the x-ray screen back on. White bones glowed in the dim room, all those thin lines, all those breaks. "These fractures," she said, pointing, "they happened at different times, weeks apart, sometimes months." Mom sat in the corner with her hands over her face. She hadn't stopped shaking since he was taken away. "Do you remember when any of these happened?" the doctor asked. The bones stopped looking like bones. They became days. "The first one," my voice came out small. "I was late coming home from school." I saw it again, the hallway, the door, the way he stood in front of it so I couldn't get past him. "That one hurt for weeks," I whispered. "I couldn't lie on my side." The doctor wrote something down. "And this one?" "Christmas," I said. "I dropped his mug." Mom made a broken sound. Another line. "Summer, I was 10 minutes late." Another. "When I talked back." Another. "When I cried." It didn't feel like remembering. It felt like someone was reading my life back to me. A woman with a clipboard stepped in, the social worker. She sat beside my bed. "Your x-rays give us dates," she said softly. "But only you can tell us what those days really were." I looked at the glowing bones. He had always said no one would believe me. Now my own body was. 2 police officers pulled their chairs closer. "How many times?" one asked. "I don't know," I whispered. "A lot." "Where did he hit you?" "Mostly here." I touched my ribs. "Where no one could see." "Did your mother know?" I hesitated. "I think she didn't want to." Each question felt like pulling something sharp out of my chest. By the time they were done, my hands were shaking as badly as my ribs. The social worker squeezed my shoulder. "You did the right thing." I wasn't sure I believed that yet. As the officers left, the doctor studied the x-rays again. "There's something else here," she said quietly. "Another injury, one that doesn't match any story you've told me." And suddenly my stomach dropped. The doctor didn't rush. She stood in front of the x-ray screen longer than before, her eyes moving slowly over the glowing bones. The silence felt heavy, like something was being weighed. "This fracture," she said finally, pointing to a faint white line near my shoulder, "doesn't line up with any date you mentioned." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" I asked. "It's older than the others," she said. "But it's also different. The angle, the location, it suggests a different kind of impact." The room felt smaller. "Can you remember anything from around that time?" she asked gently. I tried. Nothing came, not a scene, not a picture. Just a blank space, like a page torn out of a book. The social worker leaned forward. "Sometimes the mind hides things it can't survive remembering." I didn't like the way that felt inside me. The doctor switched the screen. Another image appeared, brighter, clearer. "This break," she said, "happened when you were very young." "How young?" Mom whispered. "Based on bone growth and healing, around 8 or 9. Something cold slid through my chest. I saw pieces, not memories, just sensations. Being held too tight, the smell of his jacket, a door closing. I don't remember, I said. That doesn't mean it didn't happen, the doctor replied. Mom sank into the chair, her face draining of color. He wasn't even living with us then, she whispered. The social worker looked at her. Who was? Mom didn't answer. She didn't have to. My stomach dropped. You mean, I started. Mom covered her mouth. He used to come by, she said. Sometimes when you were alone. The doctor's voice stayed calm, but her eyes were sharp. This injury, she said, suggests force applied while the body was being restrained. The word hit harder than anything else. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just hitting. It was worse. The police returned, their faces different now, more serious. We're going to need to expand the investigation, one of them said. How far? Mom asked. Back to the beginning. I wrapped my arms around myself, even though it hurt. I didn't know which memories were even mine anymore. I only knew more had been taken than I could see. As the officer turned to leave, he paused. There's something else, he said. Another child's name came up. And suddenly I realized this wasn't just my story. The name didn't sound real when the officer said it. It felt like a mistake, like something that belonged to someone else's life, not mine. There's another file, he explained. A report from years ago, same man. Same address. Mom's breath caught. How old? She whispered. 8, he said. The room went silent. 8, my age when that other injury happened. The doctor looked at me gently. You weren't the first. I didn't know how to feel that. I only knew my chest hurt in a way that had nothing to do with broken ribs. They brought a folder, papers, notes, a child's handwriting on one page. He was a neighbor back then, the officer said. The family moved away after filing a report. It was never followed up. Mom covered her face. All this time, she whispered. The social worker knelt beside my bed. You didn't imagine it, none of it. For the first time, I believed that. Weeks later, the courtroom smelled like old paper and cold air. My ribs had healed, but the memories hadn't. The X-rays were displayed on large screens for everyone to see, my broken bones turned into evidence. Mark sat at the table in a stiff suit that couldn't hide what he was. The prosecutor spoke calmly. These injuries show a pattern, she said. Not accidents, not mistakes, a history. The doctor testified. So did the officers. So did my mother, her voice breaking as she admitted what she'd refused to see. When it was my turn, my legs shook. For years, I said, staring at the jury instead of him, I thought I was alone, that no one would believe me. I looked at the X-ray behind me, but my bones remembered. The verdict came fast. Guilty. Mark didn't look at me as they led him away. He didn't need to. I was already free. Months later, I hung one last X-ray on my bedroom wall. Not because it showed pain, but because it showed proof. Proof that the truth leaves marks. Proof that it doesn't stay hidden forever. And proof that I survived.